Left in Kentucky, the podcast of Indivisible Northern Kentucky, District 4. Welcome back for episode 4 of Left in Kentucky. You are here with yours truly, Roberto Enriquez.
And Amy Ferguson.
And Ann Dickerson.
And we appreciate you coming back and joining us. As usual, not much going on this time of year in Kentucky, you know. Yeah. Except for all that legislative stuff down in Frankfort. We'll be digging into that in a little bit. You can enjoy that. Before that, we have our new regular segment. I guess we can't call it new now since it's kind of regular. So our regular segment of cow patties.
Our fresh patties.
Our fresh patties. Our fresh serving of cow patties.
There are worse things.
So I will start off. My cow patty award this time goes to Betsy DeVos, who decided it would be an excellent idea, along with the Trump administration, to eliminate funding for Special Olympics.
Boo.
Yeah. So, congratulations. You have earned this cow patty.
Well, I would like to give my cow patty too, and congratulations, Mr. Governor Bevin, for receiving my cow patty. For thinking that chicken pox parties are a good idea. Personally, I would rather my child not get a disease. Just my personal opinion. When a vaccination is available and proven safe over many, many years. I am very concerned about this whole anti-vax thing. So, cow patty goes to you, Governor Bevin, for perpetuating this nonsense.
Well done. I'm sure Ann has nobody that she can think of that deserves a cow patty award.
I could literally provide a list that would last this entire episode. So
she's always got a field full of them.
Maybe we'll do that one day. We'll have the all cow patty episode.
That would be awesome. So after going through all of the nominees, my winner this week goes to Kentucky State House Representative Melinda Prunty, or Prunty. I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce her name. I want to start by reading a statement from Attica Scott on the last day of the legislature. She says, "I see the face of evil, and it looks like Melinda Prunty of the Kentucky House GOP. I learned long ago that the devil can quote scripture better than any biblical scholar. It's clear that House leadership is too weak to gavel her racist hatred and thus have chosen the side of racism." And I gotta say, she nailed it. And this is why this person receives my cow patty award. Because on the very last day of the legislature, after being asked repeatedly and respectfully, going through proper channels, several legislators got together, held a press conference, as well as spoke to the rest of the House, asking, please, when we have these conversations regarding abortion, can we not compare this to the Holocaust? Can we not compare this to the lynching of black people during, slavery in the U.S.? And I am one of those people who 100% believes that you can have completely different opinions on any issue and still have a respectful dialogue. You can still talk, back and forth. It doesn't have to change your mind. You can present all your points. Somebody else can present theirs, but you don't have to be outwardly disrespectful and rude. And in this case, blatantly racist and anti-Semitic. So despite all of that, she still made the conscious choice on the very last day of the legislature to help pass not one, but 2 resolutions to, quote unquote, Matt Bevin's team for continually going to bat in court against those who would fight the anti-abortion bills that they keep passing. And in that diatribe, she went off on this, massive tangent, mentioning these things again. So she makes a conscious choice to be a racist. She makes a conscious choice to not be respectful of her colleagues in the state legislature, and she makes a conscious choice to decide that her beliefs and her religion are superior to anyone who she would come in contact with that believes opposite from her. For all those reasons, she's my Cow Patty Award winner.
I think that's an excellent and well-deserved one.
Well-deserved.
Yeah. And I think you're talking about how you can, we can disagree on issues and whatnot, but we can still do it respectfully. And I have to say, at the end of the session on Thursday night, I stayed up late to almost midnight when they finished. And I thought Rocky Atkins did a really nice job summing that up at the end and saying, you know what, we can disagree about stuff. We can have a difference of opinion. But at the end of the day, we need to be professional and respectful of each other. And that's the way we need to conduct business in the State House.
Right. And there were many examples, a couple that we'll probably get to later, in ways that absolutely was not the case on the last day.
Yeah, definitely. So there's your cow patties for this week. Enjoy them. We have finally wrapped up General Assembly 2019 here in Kentucky. This past Thursday evening. It was a late one, went almost till midnight, and as we suspected, there was quite a bit of activity that happened, and new stuff that came out, and stuff that people didn't have time to read, and so we're going to be talking about. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, we called that.
So we're going to be calling. Yeah, I do remember a certain prognostication about that in our last episode. But a couple of bills we're going to be talking about: House Bill 358, which talks about allowing some agencies to withdraw from the retirement system and not pay their portion of it. This is related to a lot of the health departments who were afraid of going bankrupt if they had to make that payment. We're going to talk about House Bill 458, which is part of the tax cleanup, and a couple of the other bills, but those were kind of the big ones. I think we might mention Senate Bill 18 about workplace protections. So anyway, lots going on this time. So, Anne, where do you want to start? So many things to choose from. It's like walking down the candy aisle and all the bad-tasting candy. Which one are you going to be forced to eat first?
Yeah, I hate black licorice. So
they're all black licorice.
Yeah, they're all black licorice. So what I'm going to start with is, that night, I know you had said you were up late because when I was messaging, you were up with me responding to some of the things. But of course, I was up way later waiting to see who ultimately weighed in and all kinds of stuff like that. So I want to go over something that I was put out on our Twitter page that says, as the Kentucky GA-19 wham bam thank you ma'am legislature comes to a close, we predict a record number of tax dollars being paid to attorneys to win cases against unconstitutional bills. And in that chunk, there's going to be, we had 4 anti-abortion bills passed this session. 2 of them are already on hold because within less than 24 hours from passage, federal judges were like, nope, you got to put a hold on that. And then we have 358, which, there's a question as to whether or not it breaks the inviolable contract. Yep. And there's a question because it deals with money, and they were claiming that it was passed with only 58 votes, but in a short session, it's required that 60 votes or more pass any kind of appropriation bill. So there's a question as to whether or not that comes into play that, honestly, I've yet to see anyone answer. So all of that kind of shenanigans went on. The next thing I have here on Twitter, we've seen legislators who ran on the message that they were pro-teacher, prove otherwise on both sides of the aisle, and votes to actually increase the unfunded pension liability.
Yeah.
And that goes back to HB 358 again, because that's what it does. Whether they want to look at that or not. The problem is this bill is a short-term stopgap measure, if you will,
it's another kick the can down the road bill.
It is, and it's the reason that the Democrats who voted in favor of it, that was their rationale. Well, my, community health departments, my this, my that, are screaming for relief. But the fact is, their relief is going to be over in a very short period of time. Meanwhile, it compounds the problem that we already have. Nobody had the foresight to look longer than a year.
Right.
So that
it's almost as if we need additional revenue to solve this problem.
Okay. Which
leads
I know
us
this is
to
a
the
crazy,
tax bill. Where
I know this
you
is a
would think-
crazy idea. But
right, but what's so funny about you saying that is this. Hold on. The third in the in this thread here is I'm reading down from Twitter. More corporate tax cuts, thus decreasing the state revenue, yet no bill, no idea, no plan that supports an increase in revenue. And we need to hit that time and time and time and time again. I mean, I remember years, back to my childhood days when it was one thing for Democrats to be labeled as quote unquote tax and spend liberals.
Right.
Right? Well, the problem is we have Republicans who are no tax and spend. So, you just keep digging your own hole. We're operating at a deficit. We have been for several years, ever since Matt Bevin took office, and it became his policy to give away more in corporate taxes, tax breaks and incentives than the state actually has coming in the form of revenue. But this makes it worse. On what planet is this a good thing? I mean, I don't care who you are, unless you are a multi-millionaire running a business in Kentucky that functions at the upper echelon of businesses, and of course you're a happy camper, everybody else suffers with this this isn't governing. This is slapstick comedy.
Matt thinks math is hard.
Well, clearly they proved on the last day that the Republicans failed freaking math.
Yeah.
I mean, failed. And yet they're the ones touting private school. All those who go to private schools, all those who go to religious schools, and they can't pass basic economics or math. We got issues. And then finally, KYGA 19 goes down as the year of fiscal suicide, fiscal irresponsibility, and it's because of all of that. They can no longer claim that the Conservative Party is one of fiscal responsibility because they prove time and time and time again that it's not. And eventually, this is going to hit people hard enough that they're going to go, okay, now I see what, these other groups were talking about.
Yeah. It's really flipped on its head, right? Because 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the Republican Party they were conservatives. They were fiscal conservatives. It was all about fiscal conservatism and had very little to do with social conservatism or social issues there were some, but even those were, it was the Nixon administration that created the EPA. So, but when it came to fiscal issues, it was very much about let's be, fiscally conservative with what we're spending. Let's make sure we're good stewards of the money that we are collecting, and let's not collect more money than we need to. And over the past 30 years, it's evolved to a position
oligarchy.
Where we don't care about being fiscally conservative. We want to make as much money as we can, and we're just going to harp on social issues because that's what everybody gets their dander all up about, and we can get people to vote because of their social, I disagree with this and I disagree with that. And I've had a number of friends who in recent years have decided, and they were lifelong Republicans, but in recent years have decided they no longer are in any way aligned with the Republican Party as it exists these days.
Right. Well, and this is where I think you're seeing a big difference between traditional Republicans and Tea Party Republicans, or as people have taken to calling them Trumpublicans, because it truly is his party now. But what's so sad about this is that it has, spread all the way down to the state level, to the point it's so pervasive in Kentucky that now we need to have people who are keeping an eye at the county level and at the city level, because this is just going to keep, there's your real trickle down, is this, odd thinking when it comes to spending money and taxation. I mean, if there's a project that you have, think about you and your home. If you need to remodel your bathroom for whatever reason, it's been 20 years, things are leaking, the floor is coming up, what have you.
Right.
Before you go out and spend the money to fix it, you have to have the money to fix it.
Yep.
We're just doing stuff on air, apparently, in Frankfurt, and we're not even fixing anything. We're just handing money back over to people who already have it. So it's just mind-boggling.
Go ahead.
I think what Roto was getting at is the feeling thing. People kind of throw their common sense out the window because they feel bad about something that's happening. And I don't know how we get past those feelings. They may have to feel the hurt at home before people start turning around, unfortunately. But we're going to try to do our part to get the real information out.
And and you see the government. You talked about I forget her name, but the one who introduced the thing commending
Prunty.
Prunty, commending Bevin's administration for defending the laws, the anti-abortion laws, whatever. These are laws that our legislature is passing, knowing that they're unconstitutional.
Absolutely.
They've been declared unconstitutional, and our governor is spending money trying to defend laws that are already established as being unconstitutional. How is that being a good steward of our money?
Right.
How is that being fiscally conservative?
Right. Agreed.
It's not, is the answer.
Clearly.
And people don't care because babies die. I mean, that's how their brain works, I think, sometimes.
It goes back to that. It's a social, emotional issue, and it's easy to get people all fired up over the emotional issue, whereas, the fiscal nuts and bolts of finances is boring. It's not exciting.
Well,
and people don't want to pay taxes. I mean, nobody wants to pay taxes.
I do.
I'm okay paying taxes for services. I want a fire department. I want a police department.
But
I want them to be well paid.
My state taxes are going to defend abortion.
Right.
See, that's what I'm saying. I want to pay taxes for things that I know will help the whole state.
Exactly. Things that are going to help all of us.
And if the truth be told, it would be really interesting. And I know we're going way off topic here, but what the heck? It would be really interesting if every person who, when you go to file your tax return, right? What if there was a checkoff list with, I want my taxes to go to this, and people were only allowed to pick a certain amount, say 2 or 3 things, right? And you got things on there like, fix school buildings, fix roads, pay police, pay firefighters, all those things that our tax dollars go to pay for. Who thinks it's a better use of their money to defend something in court that they already know they're going to lose on, or to make sure that the road leading to their home or their child's school or to the hospital is paved and taken care of? Who thinks going to court and knowing that they're going to get beat, so it's just basically paying lawyers to be lawyers, is a better way to spend their money than to upgrade a 150-year-old school building? I mean, come on. How many people, if you looked at that, even in the state of Kentucky, as red as it is, when you put things in black and white like that, all of a sudden things become very clear for people. Mm-hmm. It's a shame we can't do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
I wish we could put it on a billboard, you know.
I don't know that they make billboards that big.
All it has to say is turn off Fox.
So let's see. So what other bills? We talked about 358 a little bit. What else do we want to talk about here?
Well, House Bill 358 and House Bill 458 were the two biggies the last day. 358, you know, there is no legislator that I can think, no Democratic legislator, I should say, that wasn't posting on social media about this, the way it went down. Because these folks were handed anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock at night, a document that was the Senate changes to the original bill were received in the House. Mm-hmm. And with it, at the exact same time, and this is the really miraculous part that I find just hilarious. And then within like 3 to 5 minutes, they were also handed the actuarial analysis of it. And I'm sitting here going, how did you just write this and have the actuarial analysis all ready to go?
That is pretty amazing. It's almost as if it was done ahead of time.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, that's really bizarre.
Imagine that.
and we're so surprised.
Right. So there's...
You know, I really like the take that what Attica Scott has done, where she's decided if they introduce a bill and they don't have time to read it, she doesn't have time to read it to understand what's in it, she's automatically voting no.
Right. And you know what? I just did it again. Gosh dang it. Mixing up 358 and 458. I was doing that all night long because they're so close. 458 was that tax bill that was supposed to be a cleanup that ended up being a cleanup. Right?
Right.
Because they were supposed to write a bill that cleaned up the mess that they created last year.
Right. The one where they were charging taxes for like churches who were doing raising money and stuff.
Right,
yeah.
Right. But then in this cleanup tax bill, they included $16 million more in tax cuts to corporations because, you know, we don't already give away the store enough. So let's add 16 million more to the deficit.
Because we don't need more revenue, so we have it to give away.
Their campaigns need more revenue.
Yeah. So then they had to write another amendment, which became a committee sub to make it a cleanup of the cleanup of the cleanup.
Right.
It just bonker, batshit crazy stuff. And, so yeah.
It's like a Russian nesting doll.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. So apparently they cut enough of that the actuarial analysis showed that the cost was only going to be 3.5 million rather than 16 million, but it was received so late that nobody had the time to read any of it, right? To determine which things were pulled, which things were still included, etc. And as of today, I couldn't even tell you. Like, and, you know, Bluegrass Politics on, I follow on Twitter, right, did an exceptional job that night pointing out that people were voting for this bill in the House, both sides, and not even asking on the House floor that very question, which things were cut, which things were kept. One big thing that what was it? KFTC. Oh, now this flips back to 358. You know, I mean, everybody was awake. Everybody was online. Things were going wham, wham, wham. That's why I called it the wham, bam, thank you, ma'am legislature, because it just was. Back to now, HB 358, that was the crazy thing that people voted for that allowed for the opting out of these quasi-government agencies from KRS, not TRS, KRS. We got to make sure to keep all of our anagrams correct. But at the same time, there's a line in there. Now, some people will tell you that it was removed. Some people will tell you it doesn't say what we think it says. So there's so much. This is a problem. We have such non-transparency that nobody can figure out what the heck's going on. And yet, again, like you were saying with Attica Scott, she's the only one that's like, hey, well, I shouldn't say that. She's the only one that's been really vocal about it. That if I don't have time to read it, it's an automatic no vote. That should be just the way that it is.
Exactly.
Period. I don't even care if you're down to, you've passed it all the way down and you're in the last possible committee sub. Even a committee sub needs a minimum of 24 hours. It needs to be posted so that the public can read it, and it needs to be given time for every legislator to consider what it's saying and what the effect will be. Yep. We've got to put an end to this process and the way that it's being done. It's ridiculous.
And I would recommend for those listening to the podcast, if you've never gone and actually read one of the bills, go to the LRC site, lrc.ky.gov. That's the Legislative Research Commission here in Kentucky, and look up a House bill. Look up House Bill 458, House Bill 458, and read it, and then figure out if you know what they're talking about. I mean, seriously, these are not, so many of these bills are so hard to understand what they're getting at and what they're trying to do, that it takes a lot of time to really break it down and dissect it to figure out what they're trying to say.
Right, especially when you have the original version, and then amendments are added, and then parts of it are struck out, and then, parts may be added back in, but the language somewhat changed, and then it goes from, one chamber to the other chamber, and then the second chamber has their go at it, and they start playing whack-a-mole and striking the things they don't like and adding amendments. Or, as Damon Thayer is famously noted for this time around, they just strike the whole bill in its entirety and substitute a whole new bill in its place, and then you got to go back to the original chamber. It's just, and they continually on the last day of the legislature, once again, even though technically it's legal, I find it just insane that it is, where they voted time and time again to waive the rules, waive the second and third readings. So they'd only put it out there having read it once, and the only person who actually read it was the person who wrote it, because everybody else is just getting it just crazy way to run any kind of government at any level.
Yeah, especially any kind of government with any kind of visibility and any kind of transparency. Like you said, the law says that before a bill can be voted on, it has to have 3 readings. Unless they decide to waive that rule and go, we really don't want to do that.
Right. Well, so what's the point of having the rule to begin with if you're allowed to vote not to use it? It's just crazy.
Exactly. All right. So let's see. I think we're about done with our wrap up. What else do we want to talk about? Are there any other bills we want to mention real quickly? From the last day?
No. Those, it was so crazy going back and forth between those two. Only because so many people were watching, so many people were posting about it. Like I said, KFTC was posting. Bluegrass Politics was posting. You had people like Brent McKim, who's the president of JCTA. You have all these people watching these bills and posting at different times, and you're trying to keep up with what's going on. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, then you have another bill come down the pike at the very last minute with taxes that nobody knows what's really there, what's really being done, what's not being done, and just,
So I would just like to give a friendly reminder to our listeners that our representatives in Frankfort, they work for us. They are our employees. So, of course, we need to hold them accountable. And I would urge everyone that can listen to please reach out. Know who your representative is. Reach out to them. Tell them you want to know what's going on. You want to read the bills that they're passing.
Yep.
And get involved, please.
Absolutely. All politics is local.
Absolutely. So that wraps up General Assembly 2019. Oh, except for rumor is Damon Thayer is going to pre-file a bill on Monday for in relation to retirement. Not sure exactly what that means. And the legislature won't be back until 2020, unless the governor decides to call a special session, which he did last year, which led to nothing but wasting couple $100,000 worth of Kentuckians' hard-earned tax dollars. So anyway, but we will definitely keep an eye out for that and let you know. But other than that, that wraps up General Assembly 2019.
Goodbye.
On the national side of things, there was a little book report that was recently completed. That's been 2 years in the making. The Mueller report, which as we are hearing, maybe somewhere between 300 and 400 pages in length. So quite lengthy, which we'd expect on a 2-year mission, looking into Russian interference. So, what we're seeing right now, right, is we're seeing a lot of headlines of report says this and report says that, and there's no collusion and cleared and whatever. But I think it's important to keep in mind that none of us have seen the actual report.
Correct.
All we have is the Attorney General Barr's summary of what he says the report says.
Right.
I think he's come out and said that I never meant it to be a summary.
Okay.
So I don't know what it is. It's a summary, not summary.
Yeah. 24 hours to come out with a 4-page summary of let's go conservative, of a 300-page document.
Right.
Have you ever tried to read a 300-page book?
Right.
And then in 24 hours and then write a 4-page summary of it?
Oh, yeah. I definitely have done that.
And that's a book that's made to be read like a book. This is an investigative report.
Right.
Can we look to the memo that he sent to the White House months ago? I'm pretty sure that a lot of things that he laid out in that memo then came out in this summary. So I'm pretty sure that he had it prepared ahead of time, that the reading of the report wasn't actually necessary.
Right. And here's the thing. I mean, Robert Mueller, whether you agree with his politics or not, well-known, lifelong Republican, but that doesn't change the fact that this is an exemplary human being who fought for his country, who was a hero, who has the reputation of just a dogged prosecutor who is meticulous in his work, as demonstrated by the fact that he has a 100% success rate. And he's going after somebody, he always gets his man. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me that someone with that kind of mindset, that kind of character, that kind of lifetime of ethic is all of a sudden going to change just because of the nature of this case. He doesn't strike me as someone who can be bought off. I don't see him sacrificing, his core beliefs for that.
Right.
I think he has a brilliant mind, second to none. I mean, this is someone who has been praised on both sides of the aisle, was so well respected that he led the FBI at one point. So let's give this man some credit.
Yeah.
I personally think he's smart enough to realize who he's dealing with in Congress, number one, as well as who he's dealing with in the administration, number two. And he is going to take every step, every measure possible to make sure that his work is protected. All those hours and money, man hours put in, people that were paid, et cetera, et cetera. He doesn't want that to have been for nothing. It has to have accomplished something of significance. And it has. Look at all the indictments. I've lost track of how many now.
I think it's 37.
I think it's way higher than that. But maybe I'm thinking of charges, the number of charges, the number of indictments, the number of people who have pled guilty, the number of people who've gone to court or are still awaiting upcoming trials. All of that speaks to the veracity of the investigation as well as, his ability to quote unquote get his man. His investigation has not been for nothing. Even if it went no further, it has not been for nothing.
I'd also like to note that he never made it political either. You never heard him coming out.
Correct.
And, saying anything at all. So no one can accuse him of using it as a political tool of any kind. Right.
But I think he's smart enough. One of the things that doesn't get enough play and that people don't understand are he farmed out huge separate segments of this work to 17 different bodies or agencies to further the investigations. He wants to make sure that this work continues and reaches the end point that it needs to reach.
I believe it was mostly because DOJ guidelines say if it's out of your mandate, you need to hand it off. But the fact that he found that many things that are potential crimes to farm out should be concerning to everyone.
Right, but not just, he was given a lot of latitude.
Yeah.
There's
more than most special investigators get.
And depending on who you talk to or listen to or whatever, who you read, some people will, it's really funny. Some people will describe it as, well, he had such a narrow scope. And you talk to other people, well, it was really broad. In my opinion, it was very broad because he was allowed to continue down any path.
Yep.
It may have started narrow, but he was given permission that, okay, if in the process of investigating this, your investigation turns up this side branch over here, you have the permission to keep going and tackling and going down that side branch as well. Yep. But here's the thing. We have this potential pardon possibility hanging over everything. Everything at the federal level is tainted with this. Right. And he's well aware of that, which is what I was referencing when saying, he knows who he's dealing with in the administration and in Congress and in the AG's office. So I think a lot of things went to states because a state crime cannot be pardoned by the president.
Right.
So, or anyone else. Imagine if Trump is never brought up on federal crimes ever, but where they really nab him, and she's raring to go, I can't remember her name, the AG of New York.
Yeah.
He's going to get nabbed on RICO charges there, big time. And it's going to be, this perpetual snowfall mountain of paperwork.
Yeah.
And nobody can pardon him, even if it happened to where he had to leave office for whatever reason. Either he doesn't get reelected, he resigns, or something is determined, that they want to impeach him for whatever reason. The minute he leaves that White House, I have visions of handcuffs in my head.
Yeah.
That, he's going to go, and then if Pence had to take over, right? Even Pence can't pardon him on a state crime.
Right. So only the governor of that state could pardon him on a state crime.
And we all know how likely that is to happen. Not. Yeah. So
him and the governor of New York are good buddies.
So his children, everybody, they're just not going the way that we thought they would.
Or the way that we have fantasized seeing them going.
Right. And now you have people like, Rand Paul's all over the place. Well, this was the biggest waste of time and money. There is a Putin puppet right there. Lindsey Graham. I'm not going to say anything against the president, despite how many times he disparages my best friend, because he's been so good to me. If that doesn't make your head spin, I don't know what will.
Lindsey Graham did like a complete 180
He
on
did.
Trump. Because when Trump was running and was first elected,
They played golf together.
Graham was like, I don't like him,
Yeah.
and I don't think he's.
Well,
and,
he's the one who said if he gets elected, we deserve everything that happens.
right.
Compromat on these people must be just astronomical.
Yeah.
Somebody's got something on all of them.
Yeah, because they went for that. Him and Trump went for that went golfing, and everything changed after that.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
The next day, I think he went on TV and said how much Trump is great for our country.
Makes you wonder how many pee-pee tapes are out there.
Wow. There's something I really just don't want to even think about. So anyway, yeah. So keep in mind, nobody knows what's in the Mueller report yet. So any headlines you see,
Don't despair.
Yeah, are based on what Barr has said and not on what's actually in the report. So we will see what we see when that comes out. I know word is that Barr has said that the report will be released by mid-April. We'll see how that works out.
That should be a fun podcast to do.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind a couple things as we bring this to a close. Number one, there is a nationwide planned protest next Thursday if the report is not made public. However, that is a fluid situation. For right now, it's planned for next Thursday.
That's April 4th. April 4th.
They've extended, that was because of the original deadline set next week by Democrats of April 2nd or 3rd for
Chairman Nadler did that.
Yeah, to have it made public. And so Move On, Indivisible, several other groups all teamed up and said, okay, then on Thursday we're going. But Wednesday may change that because now there's talk of possibly extending the deadline. Democrats giving them more time because they're saying that it'll take that long to decide what has to be redacted for security reasons and what doesn't. So keep that in mind. We'll keep our group updated via emails. If you're not on our email list and would like to be, you can contact us at inkyd4@gmail.com and we'll be happy to provide that to you.
That's going to wrap it up for this week. Left in Kentucky, we appreciate you joining us. And we will be back for our next episode where we will probably spend some time talking about the upcoming primaries here in Kentucky and give you some information on that. Until then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Look forward to next time.